Welcome to the Futurist Public Intellectual. Although Moody v. NetChoice was overshadowed by the presidential immunity case Trump v. United States last week, it is the beginning of what looks to be a long battle between state governments and social media companies. Even though the majority opinion and the numerous concurrences take up almost 100 pages, essentially nothing was resolved. The 11th and 5th Circuits both failed to properly analyze the facial First Amendment challenge, so both the Florida and Texas cases had to be remanded back to the lower courts. It was rather anticlimactic because the public was hoping for some clarity on social media regulation, but it looks like it's going to have to wait. Justice Kagan's majority opinion definitely went further than it needed to. The fact that even the usually headstrong Justice Jackson was advising caution on the issue of social media regulation evinces how premature the majority's guidance on First Amendment analysis was. Everything about the analysis hinges on this premise. Quote, "To the extent that social media platforms create expressive products, they receive the First Amendment's protection," end quote. The majority then proceeds as if this premise was already true. But as Justice Alito's concurrence points out, quote, "If Reddit and other platforms entirely outsource curation to others, they can hardly claim that their compilations express their own views," end quote. This is why it's important to analyze whether these platforms are actually common carriers. I think it's helpful to analyze two different social media platforms, YouTube and Reddit. If these social media companies were producing expressive products for the public to consume, then it would make sense that people would go to YouTube or Reddit because of their editorial style. But this is not what happens. People seek out, say, Mr. Beast's channel on YouTube simply because that's where you can find his content. If Mr. Beast decided that it was time for him to put all of his content on his own servers behind a paywall, then his fan base would go there. Similarly, Reddit has subreddits that have their own moderators. If a popular subreddit's content migrated to another platform, the fan base would follow. There's no particular message that YouTube or Reddit is trying to convey. They have community standards in order to stay legal and somewhat palatable to the public, but that's neither a particular viewpoint nor a specific message. In other words, the majority equivocates regarding the difference between curation and moderation. While newspapers undeniably present content from a curated perspective, the algorithmic moderation that these social media companies deploy cannot be viewed as expressive. To be fair, Kagan is trying to use precedent to guide the lower courts, but like Alito said, quote, "While the meaning of the Constitution remains constant, the application of enduring principles to new technology requires an understanding of that technology and its effects," end quote. We need to appreciate social media as a completely different communications technology that must be handled in its own way. Only then will we recognize why Florida and Texas's legislatures took action in the ways that they did. Thank you for listening to the Futurist Public Intellectual.